Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the City Council for December 21st, 2009 to order. Just a reminder, if you have cell phones or if you have pagers, if you would please turn those off, we'd certainly appreciate that. First thing on the agenda, as always, is the roll call and determination of the quorum. Amber, if you would, please.
Waugh. Here. Martinson. Here. Quaker.
Here.
Costello.
Here.
LaCroix. Chapman. Olson. Here. Weifenbach. Kroger. Hadcock. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Couple of housekeeping items. Number one is the fact that as we work our way down the agenda, if you wish to speak to any issue on the agenda, we do have speaker request forms. They're to your left, my right. They're over here on the media table. If you'd please fill that out with your name and also the number that you'd like to speak to. That way, as we work our way down the agenda, we'll make sure we do not overlook you. A couple other things. If you notice there's construction going on in the room, we're actually retrofitting and doing some upgrades to our IT in this room. I would just caution the council that all the mics are working, but they haven't had a chance to do a lot of testing, so just assume that your mics are always hot. So any sidebars you have may be saved into perpetuity on the internet, so please be very careful as far as your sidebars. Let's see, with that, of course, as always, the next thing on the agenda is invocation. Pastor Jim Sorum from the Bethel Assembly of God Church will be giving our invocation, so would you all please rise and then remain standing because we'll go into the Pledge of Allegiance immediately after that. Pastor?
All right, thank you. Let us pray. Our God, we are so thankful for the message of this season that God, out of your love, you refused to leave us stranded here, and you said you were going to come, and you come, and you came in the most wonderful form. The Word became flesh, and you came with all the hope, peace, joy, and wisdom of heaven to come into this world, and we've never been the same since. And we invite tonight that same presence into this room. God, thank you for these servants, our council, our mayor, and servants of the city. They sacrifice time and their energy and love for the city, and we ask that you give them wisdom tonight, and this Christmas, just give them joy. And God, we also ask that your presence would be with our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq and just a number of places where they are serving, Lord. Be with the spouses. And God, just tonight, we just pray that you would be so present in everything we do, that your justice and your mercy and your love would permeate every part of this. In your name, amen.
Thank you, everyone. The other thing I should probably point out, and it's probably become obvious by now, we have no queuing system tonight. So we're going to do the good old-fashioned hand raising tonight. My apologies. And I will tell you, I will try and keep track of as far as who wishes to speak in what order, but if I take someone out of order, please forgive me as like I say, it's somewhat unusual without the queuing system. With that, we are on to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additional items to be added to the agenda tonight? I do need to add item 81A, which is just a very quick report on the fiscal year 2010 budget book, which is now available, and you'll find a disc within your packets. Other items. Let's go to, I just had to watch you wave at me. Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I've got 4 items. The first one would be a 75A, authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign agreement, and there's a copy of that agreement in the folders on the dais. The next item would be 128, fish garbage service license action. 129 would be authorize mayor and finance officer to sign letter of engagement with Nooney, Soleil, and Van Norman.
Okay.
And 130 would be litigation direction.
Direction. Very good. I believe I have all that. Any others? Please raise your hand. Any others? So to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Okay, we'll call that 82B.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, any others? If not, so far, we have additions of a 75A, an 81A, a 128, 129, and a 130. 129 was the authorize a signature of an engagement letter. Is that correct? With, I believe, did you give us a who? Thank you. Any additional items to be added to tonight's agenda? Not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are to the approval of the minutes. Chair will look for a motion to approve the minutes from the December 9th, 2009 City Council meeting. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we have awards and recognition, and I would ask our Veteran of the Month to come and join me at the podium. There we go. It's always an honor and a pleasure to recognize those that have served us and served in the military to assure our freedoms in our country, and this month is no different. So let me just read this and give you a little bit of a history as to our recipient of our 2009 December Veteran of the Month. In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we are pleased to present the December 2009 Veteran of the Month recognition to Orrin Hurst. Orrin joined the United States Air Force and is trained in metal fabrication and was first, he was first served at Sheppard Air Force Base in Texas. From there, he was assigned to the CE Squadron at the United States Air Force Academy, I assume down in Colorado Springs. Exactly. Yep. And maintained the cadet and flight line facilities during this time. In 1993, Orrin was sent to the 554 Red Horse Squadron in Korea and worked as a structures tool room monitor. In 1994, Orrin was sent to the 28th CES at Ellsworth Air Force Base working as a structural journeyman. And during his stay at Ellsworth, he was deployed 2 times to Saudi Arabia, participating in Operation Southern Watch and Vigilant Warrior. He was also deployed to Port-au-Prince, Haiti for humanitarian relief efforts. Upon returning to Ellsworth Air Force Base in 2004, he was reported to the NCOIC of the Black Hills Self-Help Store, and in 2004, he was sent to Nellis Air Force Base to the 820th Red Horse Squadron before being deployed overseas to support Operation Iraqi Freedom. Boy. Orrin returned to Nellis, but was redeployed one more time in Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and also Iraqi Freedom. Upon his return, Sergeant Hurst volunteered to oversee the vehicle control of the NCOIC, which was responsible for over $43 million worth of vehicles. Through this experience, he was instrumental in producing an outstanding in the annual inspection. Technical Sergeant Hurst retired from the United States Air Force in 2008. He has an incredible amount of awards and decorations, which is about 2 paragraphs long. I'll just touch on a couple of them. Air Force Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Global War on Terrorism Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Ribbon. It just goes on and on and on. Orrin feels that his greatest accomplishment was receiving the Army Commendation Medal for his outstanding performance in the Red Horse Squadron attached to the United States Army. Orrin married Jennifer Hicks in 1993. They have 2 children, Jason Hicks of Las Vegas, Nevada, and also Kristen Hicks, who is currently serving in Germany. Oh, she's here.
She cross-trained at the time.
Oh, okay, very good. Orrin and Jennifer have 1 grandson. Since retiring, Orrin has worked at Walmart. He is a member of TRIA and continues to volunteer his time by helping with the Monday night bingo program, which is huge. I know that. He has served his country with honor and integrity, and is most proud of his military record and accomplishments. Orrin, congratulations.
Thank you. I'll just keep it short. I'd just like to thank TRIA, great organization, and I'd like to thank the city of Rapid City.
Very good, thank you. Let's get a couple pictures if we can. Thank you, everyone. We now go on to the general public comment period. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the council members present. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak or bring some issue in front of the council that is not currently on the agenda? Anyone? If not, we will move on. Thank you, everyone. We're on to the non-public hearing items. This is items 3 through 83 inclusive. 3 through 83 inclusive. Chair will look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 3 through 65 inclusive, please. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Chair would ask if any items 3 through 58, which are on the consent calendar, need to be removed from that consent calendar. If so, please raise your hand. Let's go to Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remove item 44.
Item 44. Any additional items that need to be pulled from the consent calendar, and we're dealing with the consent calendar 3 through 58 inclusive. Any additional items? Not, the chair will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 3 through 58 inclusive, with the exception of item 44, please. Whoops, I'm sorry, Jason. Oh, yep, very good. We'll take a motion and a second to close the public comment period. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, item 3 through 58 inclusive, with the exception of item 44. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're on to item number 44, which is under legal and finance. Let's see, Mr. Costello, could you please read an item number 44, please?
It'd be my pleasure. Item 44 is approve the 2010 proposed items for the 2012 process, Phase 4, with the structure being as it was in 2005, and I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Chapman was tasked in contacting the council on this 2012, and we do have an updated list that he discussed with some of the council members, and that's what I'd like to have approved. That's on in your packet, and I handed out another one. Some of the changes that were in it is the 3 committees consisting of 5 citizens for the 2012 and 3 council members serving as non-voting liaisons. And the council president would be assigned, would not be assigned to a committee. Some of the other changes that were made were the municipal infrastructure would still remain the same as the 2005, which is 50,000 for municipal infrastructure, civic improvements at 25.
50%?
50%. and civic improvements at 25%, and economic development at 25. Some of the other stuff we discussed was the council will determine the funding during the 2012 process. Some of the discussion was pay as you go or do the bonding, but we figured we could come up with that later on in the process. And so that's what the motion what I'd like to have on the floor is to approve what's on the dais.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the process per the recommendation on the handout within your packets. Is everyone clear on that motion? So we're dealing with the handout per the recommendations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? See? Oh, go ahead. Let's go to Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just procedurally, were the items on the handout, were those discussed at the Legal and Finance meeting? If a council member would mind answering that question. They were? Okay, and it just happened that the motion then was keeping the structure as it was. Could someone explain to me why it's the difference between the motion on the consent calendar and what we have before us?
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
My recollection is that at Legal and Finance, there was discussion about the proposal and some changes that ought to be made, and I believe this came forward with the understanding that there might be something different presented, and I believe Alderman LaCroix has accurately described the changes. So since they aren't the same as what's linked, you need to approve what's on the dais.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could have clarification on the new process, is it the intent to also appoint 2 alternates to each committee, as was done the first round? If that's not part of the proposal, I think that might be a good amendment.
I think that would be.
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Okay.
Should I
There is-
restate?
I think and is that all right with the seconder? I just want to make sure we go. Jason, do you have any concerns? Do you want to take that up as an amendment?
I think you could address that as a friendly amendment at this time. To the extent that the proposal recommends changing the structure of those committees, what will come forward next is an ordinance amendment to implement that, so you'll have a second chance to look at that.
Okay. With the understanding of the alternates. Okay. Very good. Everyone clear on the motion? And that is the recommendation per the packet with the addition of the suggestion that we have the 2 alternates per committee. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the consent calendar. We're on to the continued consent calendar. This is items 59 through 65. 59 through 65 inclusive. Let's go to Marcia. Any items we need to pull? How about from the council? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the, consent calendar, items 59 through 65 inclusive, per the recommendations on the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the continued consent items. We're on to the non-consent items, items 66 through 83. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 66 through 83 inclusive, please. So moved. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are in the public comment period for items 66 through 83. I do have a speaker request form on item number 66 from Bob Brandt. And there again, Mr. Brandt, we do time this. You'll have 3 minutes, so if you please identify yourself, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob Brandt. I just will answer any questions the council has concerning this amendment or the reasons that I asked that it be brought forward.
Very good. Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Ryan, looks like Schuman, item number 83. And there again, if you just identify yourself, make sure I got it right.
I'm Ryan Schuman with Cleary Building Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I just want to take a moment of your time to go over the sign appeal that we have in front of you tonight. As you know, or if you remember from the 7th, we were We were extended till tonight because of the variance board denial. That being said, it's my understanding that on the variance board, we had a 2-2 deadlock vote. And it's unfortunate that I had contracted with a gentleman who is on the variance board himself, and he had to withdraw himself from the vote. So that being said, I just want to remind everyone that this is a state mandated sign move for a temporary construction easement. And then going beyond that, removing a sign in today's socioeconomic world, it looks like we may be going out of business, in which case we've actually just recently hired a gentleman. And so we are expanding business, we are hiring personnel, and I don't think we want to move in a direction that is hindered. So, as well as I do have 11 direct employees plus their wives and children that are directly affected by this sign. So I ask you to strongly consider the approval of the sign.
Thank you. I do not have any additional speaker request forms on items 66 through 83. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to any item 66 through 83 inclusive? That would be your opportunity. If not, Chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period on items 66 through 83 inclusive, please.
So moved.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Alderman Kroger.
Mayor, on item number 73, I'd like the record to reflect that I will be abstaining from the vote.
Okay, we will make sure that when we get to that, we will. Since this is a non-consent item, so as we work our way down, if you just remind me on item 73. Okay, any further discussion? Motion on the floor is to close the public comment period on items 66 through 83 inclusive. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 66. And that would be, okay, let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you.
Is your mic on?
Oh, okay. First reading of ordinance number 5569, an ordinance to allow for the conversion of an on-premise sign to off-premise sign for more than one parcel by amending subsection Q of section 15.28.050 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval of first reading of ordinance 5569. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 67, please.
First reading of ordinance number 5568, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Renner Associates for the Rapid City Area School District number 51-4 for rezoning from flood hazard district to civic center district on property located south of Central High School between North Mount Rushmore Road and West Boulevard North and north of Omaha Street. My motion is for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 68, please.
A request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a preliminary plat on lots 1 through 28 on property located east of Timmons Boulevard, south of Neal Street, and west of Big Sky Drive. And my motion is for approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 69, please.
A request by Carl R. Schuler Jr. for a petition for annexation on Lot 4 of Melody Acres located south of Melody Lane and east of South Valley Drive. My motion is for approval with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval with stipulations. This is item number 69. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 70, please.
A request by Dwayne and Michelle Britton Ness for a petition for annexation on Lot 3 of Lot 3 of Melody Acres located at 2818 Melody Lane. My motion is for approval with stipulations.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item number 71, please.
A request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Huey Clemens for a layout and preliminary plat on lots A and B of Clemens Addition, which is located a distance, as the point of the beginning, located at 6299 East Highway 44. And my motion is to continue to the January 4th meeting at the applicant's request.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on item number 71 to continue this item to the January 4th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 72, please.
A request by Spurlick Consulting Incorporated for Triple Z Estate Development for a preliminary plat on Lot 19 of Block 11 of Elks Country Estates located south and east of the intersection of Padre Drive and Jolly Lane. My motion is for approval with stipulations.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We're on to Legal and Finance Committee items. Alderman Costello, item number 73, please.
We're switching it up, Mr. Mayor, since I'm the Public Works Chairman.
Okay.
I went with the number 44 just because
Okay.
it rolled. But.
Number 73.
Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign covenant agreement between the City of Rapid City and Caitland Development Company. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes with Alderman Kroger abstaining, if you so note that, Amber. Item number 74, please.
Confirm appointments of Tamara Pierre, Sean Kroll, and Cynthia Mattson to the Historic Preservation Commission. And is there an additional name? And Rich Grable. So he's the fourth name. And my motion is for approval of these four individuals. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Just so you know, that is all in your packets along with all the applications.
Okay.
Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 75.
Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign license agreement for police department training at 108 East Main Street. And my motion is to continue this item
January 4.
to January 4.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item number 75 to the January 4th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Now we're into Public Works Committee items. We have one item, item number 76.
And we have a
I hate to be a whatever, but 75A is an agreement, I believe.
You are right.
Man. 2 times.
Well, it never fails. When all my toys are taken away, I can't keep my meeting running straight. Mr. Green, 75A.
75A is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign an assignment agreement. This is for the Cabela's Economic Development Foundation, TIF. This had been previously approved by the council. However, the official name of Cabela's has changed. That's the only reason for this agreement. It's necessary to finalize that transaction. Our recommendation is for approval.
And that, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor and the finance officer to sign the agreement. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Jason, has the property been transferred?
Sam, is your mic on? My apologies.
Has the property been transferred?
Jason?
No, the assignment agreement is an integral part of completing that transaction. That needs to be done before the property can be transferred. We anticipate that happening next week.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. We're dealing with item 75A. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Now item number 76.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure. Number 76 is to deny a request to allow a residential driveway approach opening width greater than 20 feet for a residential lot located at 4122 Quimet Court in Red Rock Meadows subdivision. And my motion is to continue to January 4th at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and a second to continue item number 76 to the January 4th City Council meeting at the applicant's request. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I believe my question will be for Marcia Elkins. Why are we continuing this?
Marcia? Marcia, your mic.
Thank you. Originally, I'd received a request to withdraw this, and it's provided on the dais in your packet is a copy of the correspondence. Late last night, I got an email from Jay with Mandalay Homes who'd asked that he unwithdraw his request to withdraw. And he's out of town because of the holidays. The individual who was purchasing the home was upset about the narrowing of the driveway, and so he'd like to be able to be available to present that to you. So that's the reason for it to be continued. It was kind of a last-minute thing on behalf of the owner who's just finished the closing on that on Friday.
I see. I would just like to reiterate the conversation we had at Public Works, which is where the applicant knew what he was doing and essentially tried to skirt it by the city. So I want us all to keep that in mind as this issue continues. Thanks.
Yep. Motion on the floor is to continue this item to the January 4th City Council meeting. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Preston, do we have overheads?
No, do we? No, I didn't realize I was going to read these aloud to you, but the city attorney saved you from that.
I guess you'll read them in. Go ahead. Jason Green?
The statute requires reading aloud of the bids when they are opened, and it's my understanding that at the time they were opened, they were read aloud. So it's not necessary to read them aloud at this point, but it is necessary to include them all in the minutes per the handout that Mr. Preston's prepared. So even though they don't have to be read aloud, they do have to be included in the minutes.
Okay.
They are attached to the
Yes.
electronic agenda. If somebody would like, I do have one extra paper copy if somebody does not have it on their electronic agenda.
It's both electronic, yes, it should be on electronic
Yes, it is.
attachment.
It
Okay,
takes a
go ahead
little
and
bit to
proceed.
pull it up.
I'm sorry?
I say it does take a little bit to pull it up. It's a big file, but.
Yep, that's right. Go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Item number 77 is the Wilderness Park Playground Project. We received 8 bids. They consisted of a total base bid and 3 alternates. Staff is recommending that we continue this to January 4th, 2010 to allow the financing to catch up with the awarding of the bid.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this for 2 weeks to the next city council meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 78, Mr. Preston.
Jackson Springs Water Transmission Mains Project, we received 5 bids. Staff is recommending awarding the bid to Highmark Incorporated in an amount of $3,715,385.25.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid to Highmark, Inc. for a total of $3,715,385.25. And I would just note that this was a very good bid because the engineer's estimate was about $4.4 million, so it came in well below that. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 79, please.
This is transit shelters installation. We received 10 bids. Staff is recommending awarding the bid to Lip Construction Incorporated in an amount of $18,455.78.
We have a motion and a second to award the bid to Lip Construction, Inc. for $18,455.78. And there again, since you don't have it up on the screen, the engineer's estimate was $51,150. So there again, another very good bid. Any further discussion on that motion? Motion is for approval. Yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Mr. Preston.
Item number 80 is a PCC pavement repair, LaCrosse Street joint sealing and panel repair project. We received 7 bids. Staff is recommending awarding the bid to Stanley Johnson Concrete Contractors Incorporated for $120,346.
We have a motion and a second for approval on the award of the contract to Stanley J. Johnson Concrete Contractors, Inc. for a total amount of $120,346, correct?
Correct.
Motion on the floor is for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 81, please.
11th Street Alley Sanitary Sewer Reconstruction Project. We received 6 bids. Staff is recommending awarding the bid to Western Municipal Construction Incorporated in amount of $516,702.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval and award of a bid to Western Municipal Construction, Inc. for $516,710.
$2. $702.
It's different than what I'm showing on my paperwork, Jim. I'm showing 10. This is on the 11th Street Alley Sanitary Sewer Reconstruction. I'm showing the bid total from Western Municipal Construction, Inc., $516,710. What does the electronic version say?
What, 710? Is that the correct
It
amount?
is 710? Okay. Everyone clear on the motion? We're dealing with the $516,710. Okay. Everyone clear on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. We are on to items number 81A, which is the budget book report. And there again, I'm going to apologize. Most of the people in the audience can actually see the screen. Some of the council people to my left are going to have difficulty seeing it. Just wanted to give a very quick report. Within your packets, in your folders, there is a CD-ROM version. It is also linked online. I want to give an awful lot of credit to the people that really made this happen. That was Katie and Kay in my office. They put in hundreds of hours putting together a new format for the City of Rapid City in their budget book. One of the things that I was committed to doing was trying to put together a format that was easily readable and easily understandable. It's not that our old format wasn't accurate, it was just very difficult to read. And what you will find is the fact that as you go through the budget book, you'll see an awful lot of information, including the table of contents, which will take you exactly to each one of the budgets. All 11 different departments, all of their divisions are lumped under that department. In other words, a good example is all the different divisions that are under Robert Ellis's all appear basically together, so they're not scattered throughout the budget book. The other thing that you will find is you will find pie charts for every single budget, which makes it a lot easier to actually look at not only their revenue, but also the expenses. How we start off is we always talk about the total revenue and the total expenses per the department, and then it is broken out by each one of the divisions. It is also broken out whether or not it is enterprise money or general fund money. So they're, again, very easy to understand, and you'll actually find, like I say, not only each department, but both general fund and also total funds are broken out at the front of the book. With that, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them. I know this is all being thrown at you real quick here, but please review it. It's online. It's on your discs. And for the media, if there are copies of the new budget book over on the media table if you want to take those with you. We also provided, just for the media, the copies of the 2009 budget book, so you had something to compare it to, so you can understand the difference between what we did in fiscal year 2009 versus 2010. The goal is open transparency and also the ease of navigating the new budget book, and I think we've accomplished that. There again, keep in mind, if you go to www.rcgov.org, you can actually pull it offline. The thing I will warn you about, it is 40 megs, and unless you have a high-speed connection, it'll take quite a bit of time to download. If you don't have high speed, we do have free copies of the CD-ROM in the mayor's office, and we'll also make them available down at the finance office. With that, if there's questions, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Are we getting a paper version as a council?
There is a paper copy. It's over on the media desk. We didn't want to burn trees up. If you'd like one, all you have to do is request. Be happy to print those out. The preference is that we actually have electronic versions, but if anybody requests a paper version, we will print those out on an individual basis.
I would request a paper version if anybody else does.
What
For
I'll
me,
do-
I like to write stuff on
Sure.
the book and stuff, so if I could get one, I would appreciate it, sir.
Why don't we have Kay actually send an email out to all the council members and anybody who would like to have a hard copy? We'll actually put those together for you. We should have them done within the week. Okay? Any other questions? Let's go to Karen Gunderson Olson.
I would just make a motion to acknowledge the report.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to acknowledge. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a very good layout of the budget, and I appreciate it coming forward like this. And I, too, would like to thank the girls in the office, Katie and Kay, because they do extraordinary work, not only for the mayor, but for us from the council. The question I'd have is, now that your office has created this format, is the finance office going to be able to use this, or is it every year your office is going to have to do it?
Thank you. Actually, the way it's laid out is once we put the templates and everything together, basically just importing the IFA spreadsheets into it. So this year was where all the work occurred. Next year, it'll actually be fairly straightforward to put it together. Formats in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I always like to tell everybody is the fact that if you actually read this, it's very easy to navigate and to understand. And like any good idea, the best way to come up with an idea is to actually borrow it from someone else. So what we did is we, of course, went out and looked at everybody else's budget books throughout the nation, and we found a couple that we liked, so we just politely borrowed some of their good ideas. So with that, the motion on the floor and the second is to acknowledge. Any further discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
I was just wondering, they had the mayor's picture in there, if they were putting our picture in there too.
Yep, actually we do. We have a very nice, hang on, there's the mayor, and there's your, yep. And of course, all the contact information for the council, email addresses, mission statements from each one of the departments, also the mission statement from the city council that they adopted is all included in this document. So, okay, motion on the floor is to acknowledge. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number 82. Karen, can you read that in for me?
Yes. My motion would be to request that the introduction and first reading of ordinance number 5501 to prohibit the feeding of wildlife and waterfowl in the city of Rapid City by establishing Chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code be placed on the January 4th City Council agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question would be for Mr. Green. We had originally voted on this one, and it was 5-5. At that point, we discussed bringing forward other alternatives. Do we just keep bringing things forward until we pass them, or what's the process here?
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. 5-5 vote leaves things really in limbo, and it doesn't come up very often. When it does, we generally wait for further direction from the council before putting those on any other agenda. So I think it's appropriate in this case to put this on the agenda. If the council had voted it down, I would tell you the only way to get it back would be to do a reconsideration on it, but that didn't happen at that point. It was a tie vote. My recollection is there was some request that the Urban Wildlife Committee take a look at it again, and it's my understanding they may have met, and the recommendation is to move forward with what they had. I think that will come back to you on January 4th if you approve this motion.
Okay, Alderman Weifenbach, you still have the floor, sir.
Basically, the Wildlife Committee's met again to come forward with something different, or I guess that question would be
to
Alderman
Karen
Olson.
Okay, Karen, can you chime in here?
Yes, the Urban Wildlife Committee needs to officially sign a letter supporting their current support of the management plan. And they had never specified the specificities of the ordinance, which were the fine and that detail. So that, in fact, came from the city attorney's office. We are suggesting that fine be changed, and the request that will come forward as this item moves forward would be to lower the fine to $5 plus the court costs. And so, and we will also secure a statement from the Urban Wildlife Committee that they are in support of the plan as they brought it forward, and they are in support of implementing the ban.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Weifenbach, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make sure if something comes forward, it's just not the same thing again. I think the ban obviously didn't pass 5-5. I think there's concerns in the council that we look at something in a whole global perspective to bring everybody into the situation and look at the whole picture of, ducks across the nation are overpopulating everywhere. The feeding ban isn't going to solve the problem specifically. I think that there's other options that we have to look at it in its entirety and bring on the people that want to feed the ducks into this conversation also. So I just want to be sure that we're looking at the entire picture and not just digging our heels in the sand and saying this is the only thing we can do, because it's obviously there's a whole global perspective that can be reached if we bring in those people that want to feed the ducks with the people that want to reduce the duck populations in a sensible manner and allow for some period of feeding and at specific locations and manage the duck population in a global perspective. So I do have a lot of ideas on that if somebody's interested in conversing about it at some point, but just to go and have a specific ban on feeding the ducks, I think is going to meet a lot of resistance in the community. And I think that if we look at the full picture, we can come to a conclusion that involves everybody and come up with a good management plan in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's, Alderman Weifenbach, those are some very good points, and I think the opportunity to actually discuss those other options would be at the January 4th meeting, as it's typically going to be placed, and it'll be first reading, so I think council have the opportunity to look at all the options. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I would urge my colleagues, if you've not recently read the management plan, it is global in nature. It does discuss a whole range of ways in which wildlife and waterfowl would be managed, some of which have not been discussed in a public forum, but which in fact the council did approve some 4 months ago. So I would just urge my colleagues to take a look at that document to kind of refresh their memory on the fact that the Urban Wildlife Committee did look rather globally at this issue, and I think that will be helpful in forwarding the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bill Waugh.
Thank you, Mayor. And since it was a tie vote at that previous council meeting, another way to look at it is maybe somebody had changed their mind and might be a 6-4 vote. And either be approved or disapproved. And that's what they should have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is to place this item on the agenda. That is the discussion. Any additional discussion? If not, motion on the floor is to place it on the January 4th City Council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 83, please. Karen, can you read an 83, please?
This is a request by Lightning Maintenance Company to appeal the denial of a pole sign permit, and my motion would be to uphold the denial. And I do have a comment.
Okay. Do we have a second, please? We have a second for discussion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I did listen to to Ryan's remarks, but I would urge you to look at the minutes. The minutes do register that there was a 3-to-1 vote on the Sign Code Board of Appeal on this item. So it wasn't a tie vote. It was, in fact, 3-to-1.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I did read the minutes, and the approval was a 2-to-2 vote. And one of the reasons why there was 5 members at the meeting, one of which was the gentleman who's putting up the sign who abstained from the vote. It was 2-to-2. Because it was 2-to-2, they wanted to make it a finality, so they changed the motion to deny the sign, and it went to 3-to-1. That's how this happened. There was 2 different motions. One was for approval, one was for denial. So I've spent the time to do a little research on this. This sign was put in it's in a specific place. It was built in the county. The state is widening the road. They're creating a temporary easement which involves the area where the sign is right now, and they're requesting to move the sign back closer to their building. I don't see any harm in this. This particular sign in this building is in my ward. There's been no opposition to it being moved. It doesn't really affect anything that's going on in the neighborhood, but it does affect the ability for these people to advertise. And as the road gets wider, had they finished widening the road, and I'm not even sure if they could maybe put the sign back, but it would cause it to be moved twice or more than once or whatever the case may be. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I would make a substitute motion to approve the appeal, or I don't know how I would word that. I guess I would look for.
Approve, how about approve the request to
Approve the
override the
request,
denial of the.
To override the denial.
Okay, we have a motion, a substitute motion, and a second. And that motion is to approve the request to override the denial of the signed Board of Appeals. Jason, is that a proper motion? Okay. With that further discussion, let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Just, I don't know if I need to ask Jason or Marcia, has there ever been any complaints about their sign, the way it exists today? From, it was in the county, was there any county complaints or anything that you know of?
Marcia?
There were no complaints about the sign. We did have some inquiries about the request, the variance that had been submitted. However, when the individuals in the neighborhood were made aware of the request, they did not object to the variance.
Okay, so it's not a bother for the neighborhood. In other words, if he moves a sign, it's already been there before, it hasn't called a hindrance before. It also helps his business, is what he's trying to tell us, at 55 or 50 miles an hour on that road. I don't see that that's going to hurt us. If it's been there before, it's not a different request. And again, it helps his business. So at this point, I don't see why we would deny it.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Marcia.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Marcia, would we be allowed to approve the placement of this sign on the condition that it never be allowed to become an off-premise sign?
Marcia?
You certainly could make that stipulation. I would just make you aware of the fact that it would not qualify anyway. They'd have to go through the process to comply, to make it an off-premise sign, go through the conditional use permit and the like. But certainly you can put that stipulation on it.
I would like to add that stipulation on if the city attorney will allow, but if it's not necessary.
Let's go to Jason Green.
Thank you. I hate to disagree with Ms. Elkins, but I don't think that's legally appropriate. This is not a case where you can really impose stipulations. You're either going to permit the sign or you're not going to permit it. Once it's allowed to exist as an on-premise sign, if it is going to be converted, I believe there is a specific process that they would have to go through in order to get that approved, and you'd have time for review at that point in time.
Okay.
Can I ask the applicant a question? And my question to the applicant, do you plan at any point in the future to turn this into an off-premise sign?
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor. Let me actually state the motion, then Karen, I'll come to you. Motion on the floor is a substitute motion to approve the applicant's request to overturn the denial at the planning, or at the sign variance board. Everyone clear on the motion? In other words, it would be granting the applicant's request the ability to move the sign. That is the motion on the floor. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Mine is a question perhaps for Jason, although maybe Marcia has an answer to this as well. There's a number of signs in the community which are on permanent easement, I believe is the correct word. And Jason, you can correct me if that's not the correct terminology. Could this sign ever become in that classification?
Legal nonconforming?
No, it's the situation of a number of signs on there's an electronic sign adjacent to Cold Stone Creamery that has a permanent easement, I think is the right word for it, which was sold 10 or 15 years ago. And would that situation ever be a part of this particular sign?
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's currently a prohibition in the sign code for converting on-premise signs to off-premise signs. There are a couple of minor exceptions, and I think you're going to consider an ordinance on one tonight. But for the most part, no, you cannot convert on-premise signs to off-premise signs under this current sign code. Many of the ones that you're describing, like the one next to Cold Stone, I believe, were legal non-conforming signs at the time that we adopted the current sign code. So those will continue to exist regardless of what we do on any particular
And there
application.
wouldn't be a legal possibility to do that. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
That's right.
Can I ask Jason a question?
Go ahead, please.
So the possibility of this becoming that type of a legal situation wouldn't exist?
It does not exist under the current sign code. If council was to change the sign code, it would have to be dealt with in that time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Further discussion. Deb? Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Aren't they putting this on their land so it wouldn't be off-premise anyway? So I guess
This
that's
would
my
be
point.
classified as an on-premise sign.
On-premise sign. Okay, so they'd be legal being on their property, and there is no off-premise issue here. Okay.
Okay,
Just,
everyone clear on the motion? Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroy.
Thank you, Mayor. My question's for City Attorney Jason Green, and I apologize. I was looking through committee assignments, and I'm curious, Jason, Sign Board of Appeals, City Council member, is that a liaison or a voting member on this one?
the voter.
Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
On the Sign Code Board of Appeals, the council member is a voting member. And that was a conscious decision the council made at the time you adopted that process.
I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, let's go to Alderman Aaron Costello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for the applicant. Since this isn't a temporary easement, would you have any interest in moving the sign back when the temporary easement's removed? Or temporary right-of-way, sorry,
I
Mr.
believe
Mayor.
the long-term goal of this is to actually, as Marcia brought up last time I was here, that we would like to sell the property at some point. So I don't anticipate us actually wanting to move the sign again once we have it moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman, okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The motion on the floor is to approve a request by the applicant to override the decision, the denial decision, from the Sign Board of Appeals. Everyone clear on that motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Let's take a quick roll call.
Kroger.
Aye.
Hadcock.
Aye.
Wah. Martinson. Quaker.
Aye.
Costello.
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Olson.
No.
Wyffenbach.
Okay, motion passes on a 7-2 vote. Is that correct, Ember? Very good. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. That does take us to the public hearing items. These are items 84 through 125 inclusive. Item 84 through 125 inclusive. Chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 84 through 125 inclusive, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Let's see, I think I did have a speaker request form from David Miller from Youth and Family Services on item 114 and 115. And if you just identify yourself, and then the floor is yours.
David Miller, Youth and Family Services, just present to address any questions that may arise on items 114 and 115. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further speaker request forms on any items 84 through 125 inclusive. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to any of these items? If not, we will move on. Just as a reminder, we do leave this portion of the open hearings process open until we address a number of these issues. So we are on to the continued public hearing consent items, and that is item 84. Okay. I guess we'll just read it in instead of having a consent calendar for one item. So let's see here. Aaron Costello, why don't you read an item number 84, please, for us?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Item number 84 is a request by Centerline Incorporated for Lazy P6 Land Company Incorporated for a variance to the subdivision regulations to reduce the pavement width from 12 feet to 11 feet per lane as per Chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code in an area located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 5th Street and Catron Boulevard. And I will move to continue this item until January 19th, 2010.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this to the January 19th, 2010 council meeting. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Wyffenbach, Aaron Costello.
I got better
See, when I
looking.
don't have my computer in front of me, it tells me what I'm supposed to be doing. It messes me up.
No problem. My question is more of a fill-in-the-blank question on the fifth line here.
Marcia?
What subdivision is this?
It's unnamed.
It is unnamed, and it
Okay.
came in as a blank.
Cool. Thank you for the explanation.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to continue this item to the January 19th, 2010 City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And I need to go back and under council items and liaison, My apologies, I forgot to recognize, what? Oh, you're right. Let's have a motion to close the public hearing on items 84 through 125, please. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Back under item 82, Alderwoman Hadcock did wish to have an item placed under items from council, items and liaison reports, so let's go back to that. So we'll recognize Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the City Council, and for everyone to pray for our troops who are fighting for us and fighting for our freedom. It's a good time of year to remember them. So I think that was important to say to the citizens of Rapid City, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Can we have a motion on that? I'm kidding. Okay, let me ask the obvious question. Is anybody going to actually vote on a motion against Merry Christmas? Motion on the floor is for a Merry Christmas. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we are on to the consent public hearing items, items 85 through 113 inclusive, please. And Chair would ask if any items 85 through 113 need to be pulled from the consent calendar. I do have items 113. Any additional items, please wave at me. 87. Any additional items need to be pulled from the consent public hearing items 85 through 113. Any others? Seeing none, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent public hearing items 85 through 113 inclusive, with the exception of items 87 and 113.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Let's go to item number 87. Karen, could you please read that in?
Leather Unlimited Incorporated doing business as Someone's in the Kitchen, 2210 Haynes Avenue, for a 2010 retail on-off sale wine license. My motion is for approval.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and second for approval. Let's go to Marcia. Do we need to continue this item?
87 needs to be continued to January 19th to allow the conditional use permit to be heard by the Planning Commission.
That'd be my substitute motion.
Okay, we have a substitute motion and a second to continue item number 87 to the January 19th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 113, please. And Karen, could you read that in also?
Yes. Item number 113, a resolution levying assessment for cleanup of miscellaneous property. My motion is for approval.
A motion and a second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Tome?
If I may just briefly explain this to the council, this arose out of a code enforcement action, and in our normal course of business, we use the county records to see who the property owner is and then notify the property owner. In this case, the property was sold on June 5th, and we weren't aware of that, and the county records weren't updated, and so we notified the previous owner, the current owner, and I believe she's here, Bobby Nelson. I haven't met her yet, but talked to her on the phone, and eventually they got a bill from the city for an abatement on property that adjoined theirs, and they weren't aware that they needed to abate it. So I guess out of fundamental fairness, I don't think they should be assessed the abatement charges. And I talked to the city attorney's office, spoke with Jason Green, and he thinks there's a due process problem as well because the people who actually own the property weren't notified. So, and like I say, I think she's here and she can answer any questions you may have as well.
Just for clarification, it's the abatement number 4. Is that correct, Kevin? For $91 twice?
That's correct.
Okay, so it'd be a total of $182?
Correct.
Okay. With that, discussion from the council. Yes, let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We didn't cast a vote yet, did we?
No.
Oh, so we don't have to.
Motion on the floor is for approval. If someone would like to offer a substitute motion, you'd have that opportunity now.
Move that?
Yes.
Is that what we're looking for? Item 4. I'll make a substitute motion to remove item number 4. Make an
Okay,
amendment.
we'll do it as amendment. Okay?
Okay.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we're dealing with the amendment. And the amendment would be to remove item number 4, which is an abatement of two $91 charges. Everyone clear on that motion? We'll deal with the amendment first. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are back to the original motion as amended. Any discussion on that motion? Motion on the floor would be for approval as amended. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That does take us to the end of the consent public hearing calendar. We are on to the non-consent public hearing items. This is items 114 through 125. Item 114, please. Karen, could you read that in?
This is a public hearing for a resolution of intent to enter into a lease with White Youth and Family Services, and is it a call for a public?
The motion would be to open the public hearing.
My motion then would be to open the public hearing.
Second.
You certainly could. You've already opened a public hearing on this item, so you could also have a motion to acknowledge this public hearing. If you want to do a separate one, that's fine.
It's probably simpler to acknowledge, doesn't it?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
I'll tell you
matter?
what, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. That way there's no question.
Okay, then my motion then is to open the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We do not have any additional speaker request forms. Is there anyone from the audience that'd like to speak? If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Okay, so we're on to 115, please, Karen.
Approve the request from David Miller at YFS to authorize mayor and finance officer to sign amendment of lease for 410 East Monroe Street and acknowledgement of the assignment of the lease to Youth and Family Services Incorporated, and that would be my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the request from YSF to authorize the mayor and the finance officer to sign the amendment to the lease. And that lease is for the property at 410 East Monroe Street. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 116, please.
Is this another public hearing? Do I need to set a public hearing for a resolution of intent to enter into exchange of land with St. Joe Development LLC pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 927-34, point. Pardon? Oh, to open the public hearing, sorry.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing on item 116. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, go ahead, please.
My question's for Jason Green.
Go ahead, please.
Jason Green, what does this exactly mean, exchange of land? There's no...
Okay, let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to the MOU the council has previously approved, the city agreed to enter into an arrangement whereby we would trade the property at 6th and Joe, that's currently a parking lot, for the future condominiumized interest in the parking ramp portion of the building that is to be constructed. This is the public hearing on that exchange. The next item will actually authorize the exchange to take place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any further discussion on that? Any further discussion?
Mayor has.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but was there any, I have no speaker request forms. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to speak before we close the public hearing? Very good. Motion on the floor is to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 117, please.
Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign deeds and other necessary closing documents. My motion would be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Jason, give us a little bit more clarification because the title on this isn't very clear.
Yes, the rest of this should read for the property at 6th and St. Joe pursuant to the MOU previously approved by the council.
Okay,
And that additional wording would be part of my motion.
thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for approval. Then this is for authorization of the mayor and the finance officer to sign the deeds and other necessary closing documents in accordance with the MOU for the 6th and St. Joe property agreement. Is that correct, Jason? Okay, discussion on that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Item 118.
An appeal of the Planning Commission's decision on a request by Dream Design International Incorporated for a planned commercial development, initial and final development plan on property located on the southern, located at 1520 Luna Avenue, and my motion would be to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of the appeal.
Okay, item 118, the motion is to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 119, please.
My question for Jason, is it possible to do these items as one or as a group?
I don't believe so.
No, so-
Let's
okay.
go ahead and just keep reading.
All right, thank you very much. With that, then I move on to a second reading of ordinance 5553, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to mobile home residential district on property located at 2850 Terrace Street, east of Valley Drive. My motion is for approval with stipulations.
We have a motion and second for approval of stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 120, please.
Second reading ordinance 5564, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to mobile home residential on property located at 3025 South Valley Drive. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval, and this is item 120, which is second reading of ordinance 5564. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 121, please.
Second reading of ordinance 5565, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to mobile home residential district on property located at 2805 Cactus Drive. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 5565. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 122, please.
Second reading of ordinance 5566, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to mobile home residential on property located at 2810 East Fairmont Street. My motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval of second reading of ordinance 5566. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item 123, please.
Second reading of ordinance 5567, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning from no-use district to mobile home residential district on property located at 2708 East Fairmont, and my motion is for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval of second reading of ordinance 5567. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. 124, please.
Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the waiver of right to protest a future assessment for the installation of curb gutter, street light conduit, sidewalk along one side of the street and water along the access street as they abut the balance of Lot 3. This property is located at 6299 East Highway 44. My motion is to continue to January 4 at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and a second to continue item number 124 to the January 4th City Council meeting. Any discussion on the request, on that motion? Motion is to continue to the January 4th. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. I keep seeing hands move, that's why. No, that's, he's doing this and I'm going, okay. Item 125, please.
A request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Huey Clemens for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install curb, gutter, sidewalk, streetlight conduit, water, sewer, and pavement, and to reduce the street surface width from 24 feet to 18 feet and 10 feet respectively as per Chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code on property located at 6299 East Highway 44. My motion is to continue to January 4th at the applicant's request.
We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second to continue this item to the January 4th City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? See, this is sort of like an auction. When you scratch or do something, it usually catches my attention. Motion on the floor is to continue this item to January 4th. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Mr. Preston, 126, the bill list, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $7,726,832.85. I'd like to add one item, that's to Hills Materials, change order number 1, the final is for the main fire station water line, $1,404, makes a new total of $7,728,236.85.
Do we have okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bill list as amended with a new grand total of $7,728,236.85.
Correct.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Mr. Green, executive session.
Yes, for the purposes permitted by SDCL 1-25-2.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping that he could include in that to eat Lloyd's cookies.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think that's one of the statutory purposes.
And quite honestly, I'm not so sure that we can actually force people to eat his cookies. Okay, motion on the floor is to go into executive session as permitted by SDCL 1-25-2. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're in executive. A second. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're out of executive session. Mr. Green.
Mayor, I'd ask the council to direct the city attorney to notify the AFSCME union of the city's final best offer.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send AFSCME our
final best offer.
Final best offer. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes.
Mayor, I believe the next item on your agenda is approve the contract with the Fraternal Order of Police.
That is correct. Item 127.
If I may.
Go ahead, please.
In accordance with the council's previous direction, we communicated the city's final best offer to the Fraternal Order of Police. They took that back to their membership, and their membership has voted to approve this contract. My recommendation is that you approve this. It is absolutely consistent with the final best offer as previously discussed.
So the motion is to authorize the mayor and the finance officer to sign.
It is.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor and the finance officer to sign the agreement between the FOP and the city of Rapid City. Go ahead,
Mayor. I just want to make a comment. We had a number of meetings with the Fraternal Order of Police, as we have with the other bargaining units. We had spirited discussions about the salary issue, as I'm sure you are all familiar with. Their bargaining team was highly professional, even when those discussions were very spirited, and I appreciate very much working with them. Mike Oster was their representative. Kathy Bach is the president, Warren Pochus, and Lisa Jensen. Very good team to work with.
Very good. Glad we got through that. I know it's a difficult time for everybody. Okay, motion on the floor is to authorize the mayor and the finance officer to sign the agreement between the FOP and the city of Rapid City. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Motion passes. 128, which is fish garbage license issue.
Mayor, I would recommend the council direct the city staff to notify Fish Garbage Service that their license will not be renewed, and to set a public hearing on that matter at the second meeting in January, with an option for Fish to request an earlier hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Motion passes. Item 129.
Mayor, I'd ask the council's authorization for the mayor and finance officer to sign the letter of engagement with Nooney, Soleil, and Van Norman to represent the city of Rapid City in civil litigation with Fish Garbage Service.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Motion passes. Item 130.
Finally, Mayor, I'd ask the council to direct that litigation with Fish Garbage Service be initiated post haste.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Motion passes. Seeing nothing further in the agenda, Chair will look for a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. No discussion on an adjournment motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.